Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a long-term investor trying to make sense of the wild, incredibly fast-paced world of artificial intelligence, well, you are in exactly the right place. Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're exploring a core thesis that is fundamentally reshaping how the absolute smartest money on Wall Street is positioning itself right now. Because investing in AI, it no longer just means blindly buying the most famous chip makers. It means actively chasing the next critical hardware constraint. We're going to analyze exactly how the market is identifying these bottlenecks, and we'll specifically zoom in on one company acting as a massive fulcrum in this new era, Micron.
Just to put the sheer scale of what we're talking about into perspective, think about the broader market for a second. The SOX Semiconductor ETF is up an astonishing 60% since January. Now, earlier in the year, you might have assumed that a massive leap like that was entirely the result of Nvidia and everybody scrambling for their graphics processing units. But the narrative has evolved, and dramatically so. What we're seeing today is an industry-wide rising tide. The absolutely unprecedented volume of AI demand is spilling over, forcing a massive rally that extends way, way beyond just Nvidia. Basically, the entire semiconductor ecosystem is having to activate just to handle the load.
Section 1, the new AI bottleneck. Why markets absolutely love constraints.
So, why do markets love constraints? Well, as Angelo Zeno over at CFRA Research puts it, bottlenecks dictate pricing power. It's really that simple. When a piece of tech is absolutely essential but incredibly difficult to get your hands on, the companies providing it suddenly wield immense leverage over their buyers. And that translates directly into expanding profit margins and surging stock prices. If you want to see where the smart money is going, track how these constraints are rolling through the market. Step 1 was the GPU shortage, those heavy compute engines everyone fought over last year. Step 2 shifted to CPUs, which prepped the data for the GPUs, sparking that huge race between Intel and AMD. Step 3, which is exactly where we are right now, is the memory bottleneck. You see, you can't process all that data if you have nowhere to temporarily store it and fetch it at lightning speed. And looking slightly ahead to Step 4, analysts see the next constraint emerging in optical interconnects. That's the literal laser technology transmitting data across these massive data centers. And get this, analysts expect this rolling series of bottlenecks to dictate the market all the way into 2027.
Now, what's really interesting about this is where the pressure is building at this exact moment. The memory squeeze. With GPUs and CPUs just churning through unprecedented mountains of data, the whole system is kind of choking on its inability to store and retrieve that info fast enough. And that realization, it has sent memory manufacturers soaring. SanDisk has been hitting all-time highs, and Micron has effectively turned into a literal rocket ship on the stock market. Because right now, they're the ones holding the keys to unlocking the next phase of AI scaling.
Section 2. Micron's memory breakthrough and the mission to shrink the data center.
So, what is actually fueling Micron's specific surge? It's not just a rising tide lifting all boats. It's a real, tangible technological breakthrough. Micron recently began shipping the world's largest commercially available solid-state drive, or SSD, which is custom designed for massive data centers. And the efficiency leap here is frankly staggering. By using these new SSDs, data center operators need 82% fewer server racks to achieve the exact same amount of raw storage capacity. Just think about the cascading benefits of that for a second. Fewer racks mean less physical hardware to maintain, significantly less cooling required to stop the servers from catching fire, and drastically lower electricity bills. In the ultra-competitive world of cloud computing, slashing your required rack space by 82% is an absolute game changer.
And this brilliantly illustrates the flip side of that equation. A mountain of data that used to take up an entire warehouse now requires a mere 18% of that physical real estate. Picture shrinking a massive, humming server farm down to a fraction of its size. When big tech companies are spending billions, literally billions of dollars, acquiring land, fighting for permits, and building these sprawling data centers, being able to pack that much computing power into such a tiny footprint, that is a monumental cost-saving measure. It essentially allows AI infrastructure to scale inward, getting denser, rather than just constantly expanding outward and buying up more land.
And you know what? The credit markets are definitely paying attention. Fitch Ratings just officially upgraded Micron's credit rating to a BBB+. This is a massive validation from Wall Street. The ratings agencies are explicitly stating that this upgrade is directly driven by sustained AI demand and the massive orders rolling in from hyperscalers. It basically confirms that the technological leap we were just talking about is translating directly into rock-solid, incredibly healthy financials for Micron.
Section 3. Ending the boom cycle. Is this time genuinely different?
Now, if you're a veteran investor, I know what you're probably thinking. You've got this lingering hesitation, right? Traditionally, the memory market has been a notoriously brutal boom and bust business. Companies overproduce memory chips, they flood the market, prices completely crash, stock prices plummet, and then the cycle repeats a few years later. But let's look at the two sides of the coin today. On the one hand, you have that old paradigm which was heavily tied to the upgrade cycles of basic personal computers and early cloud storage. But on the other side is the new bull case. The core argument here is that AI inference, which is the process of a trained AI actually running live and generating your answers, requires a constant, staggering, unprecedented amount of memory compared to traditional computing. Because AI inference is rapidly becoming an everyday utility, not just a one-off task, the bulls are arguing we're entering a period of sustained structural demand, one that could completely overwrite those old boom and bust rules.
Section 4. Rising costs hit consumers as the macro bottlenecks shifts to the micro.
Because here's the thing, these massive structural constraints eventually trickle down from those sprawling data centers right into the devices in your pocket and on your desk. So the crucial point is understanding how this hits the supply chain. Historically, the memory chips inside your smartphone or laptop made up a pretty small fraction of the total manufacturing cost. But today, because of this severe AI-driven bottleneck and the incredible pricing power of companies like Micron, memory is eating up roughly 35% of the total cost of building these devices. Over a third of the entire manufacturing budget is now consumed entirely by memory constraints.
And if you doubt the severity of this squeeze for even a second, just listen to the biggest companies on Earth. In their most recent earnings calls, Mark Zuckerberg over at Meta, alongside the top leadership at Apple and Microsoft, have all explicitly sounded the alarm regarding these rising memory expenses. I mean, think about it. When the most profitable tech giants in the world are going out of their way to complain to their investors about how much memory is costing them, you know the bottleneck is severe. And you absolutely know the companies producing that memory are in an incredibly powerful position.
But let's be real, Apple and Microsoft aren't simply going to eat those extra costs out of the goodness of their hearts, are they? The bottom line reality for everyday buyers is pretty stark. Retail prices for consumer electronics are projected to rise anywhere from 15% to 30%. Because these high memory costs are structurally locked in by the AI boom, they are going to be passed directly onto you and me. Your next smartphone or laptop upgrade is going to carry a noticeable premium, specifically because of the very hardware bottlenecks we've been breaking down today.
Let's move to Section 5, the physical AI frontier, and the next phase of demand.
Let's move to and see how this builds into the future. Because right now, our primary interaction with AI is pretty much trapped behind screens, right? We're talking chatbots, image generators, coding assistants. But as we pivot toward future catalysts like robotics and autonomous driving, the demand curve becomes almost dizzying. A self-driving car on a busy highway or an advanced humanoid robot navigating a factory floor cannot sit there and wait for a server hundreds of miles away to process its data. It has to process vast amounts of sensory inputs, live video, spatial awareness, real-time physics, instantly, right there on the edge. And doing that requires immense, ultra-fast memory storage housed directly within the physical machines themselves. Analysts are loudly arguing that because of this coming wave of physical AI, we honestly haven't even begun to scratch the surface of global memory demand.
Which leaves us with this final, absolutely critical thought for long-term investors. The AI revolution isn't just about cool new software. It is constrained, defined, and ultimately monetized by physical hardware bottlenecks. As we make this massive transition from digital chatbots to the extreme, real-world requirements of physical AI, the pressure on memory is only going to intensify. So you have to ask yourself, as this new era arrives, is your portfolio positioned to actually take advantage of these long-term structural constraints? Or are you just going to be caught paying the retail premium without reaping any of the rewards? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and remember, keep your eyes on the hardware.